Welcome to another Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. It's that time again. Another time for a quick queries video. Number 15 in the series. These are videos where I answer your questions that may not need a whole video in and of themselves. So let's get to it. First up is a question from Steven. Steven says, while developing my software, I'm creating it with the intention of selling it to other companies who might be facing similar challenges. I'm considering how to manage updates for clients if they use the software. For instance, updating the front end seems straightforward, but I'm not sure about the best approach for updating the back end, such as making changes to or adding tables. How would I handle these updates for my clients? So yeah, Steven, that's an age-old question. You've got a database you're distributing to different people. They've got their own sets of data. Assuming it's a split database, there's two ways you can handle this. The first option is to just give them the new updated backend database and then give them a tool to import their data. So let's say you added a few new tables, added a couple fields, changed some properties, whatever. You just give them the new database, give them a button they can click on, and it will just import all of the data from their old database, and then you'll just have the new tables with the fields and whatever that you can fill with data then. That's probably the easiest way to do it, but it does require some work on the part of the user to know how to do that. You can automate a lot of that with VBA though, and I cover the basics of importing in Access Expert 21. Now the more complicated way to do it, the developer way to do it, would be to programmatically edit their tables. So if you've added some fields or you've added some whole tables, in fact, you can manipulate the table structure using either SQL or VBA with something called a TableDef. Now the SQL way is fairly easy. I cover that in part 3 of my SQL seminar. And you can use TableDefs, which I introduce in Access Developer 37 that uses DAO. So either one of those ways, you can then have the data, send them a new front end file, right? And when they put that in place, it can check the back end to see, hey, are these fields here? And if not, it can add them. So there's definitely ways to do that. But those are the two methods I recommend. And again, of course, if you'd like to see more lessons on this stuff, post a comment down below. A rabid follower on YouTube says, after all the stuff that I show in my 3-part disable printing series, there's still another way to get in there. If the user knows enough to find the usysRibbons hidden system table, they can get in there and change properties in there, and that will still allow them to print. Yeah, there's always a way around it. No matter what you do to lock down your database, there's always some way that someone who knows enough about Access can usually get in there and change things. And to that, I can only respond with, yeah, the techniques that I show you, they're good enough to keep 99.9% of people out of the database. But you get someone who really knows their stuff, yeah, there's a way around most things. And I mean, remember, anything you can get on the screen, you can print. You can just screen capture it, drop it into Word, and then print it that way. So the techniques that I'm showing you are just kind of to frustrate the users who don't know any better. So that's about all you can do. Next up's a question from user WQ9, bunch of letters and numbers, whatever. And basically what he's saying is he's got a PDF that he has to fill in with data from Access. And it's a state-mandated PDF, so you've got to use their form. Because normally what I tell people is do your best to just recreate that form in Access as a report and make it look exactly like the other one. But he's got to use this one, I guess. And it's got drop-down boxes in it. Now, drop-down boxes are a nightmare. Now, the technique that I show in my video, where I show you how to fill in PDFs, is it uses the send keys to send data from Access into the PDF file. And I believe you can use the arrow keys or the alt-down arrow key to open up a list box or a drop-down list in the PDF. But it's been a while. I don't have one handy, and it's been a while. So you have to experiment and see whatever you can do with the keyboard to fill in that data, you should be able to replicate with Access and send keys. Right? Alt-down arrow you can do with send keys, and then you can up and down arrow. But if they change the form at all, it's going to mess everything up, and you're going to have to reprogram it again. Now, like I do mention down here, with the paid version of Adobe Acrobat, you do get some libraries you can use, and you can automate it with VBA. Honestly, personally, I've never done it before because I've never had the paid version of Adobe Acrobat. I've never needed it. Whenever I create PDFs, it's either from Word or directly from Access, and I've never needed to, modify them at all with Acrobat directly. So it's a great document viewer, but that's the extent of my knowledge. So try it. Let me know what you come up with. Next up, Benjamin, one of my Platinum members, says, when I open a table in design mode, my version of Access will not remember the size or location. Well, that's just how Access is, unfortunately. Forms and reports will remember their location. If you open up a form in form view, not design view, in form view, just when you're adding and editing records, if you move it on the screen, resize it, whatever, it should, you hit save, it should remain there the next time you open it up. It's going to remember its position. Tables and queries don't do that. In fact, Sammy, that'd be a great one to add to the list for Microsoft. It'd be nice if tables and queries remembered their position on the screen. They don't. It'd be cool if they did. Right? Next up, Leonard, another Platinum member, says all of a sudden in design view for his forms, he's missing that little button in the upper left corner where you can double click to bring up stuff's properties. Right? This little guy right here, double click and it brings up the property sheet. Okay? And he said his line tool is missing from the design tools, from the toolbox. And he can't figure this one out. One of my moderators, Kevin, gets the save for this one. Your rulers are turned off. Go to the Arrange tab on the ribbon, go to Size, Space, and then Rulers. I've seen this happen before to people. Right? Under Arrange, and then Size, Space, and then you can turn off the grid, the rulers, or snap to grid down here. Once you turn that off, look, that's what you got. Right? See? It's missing. All right, so that's how you turn it back on and off. Right there. And as far as the line tool missing, Kevin again comes in from the save. They just changed the way the line tool icon looks. In older versions of Access, it used to look like a straight line. Now it's this guy right here, that thing. If you go back a couple versions, the line tool looks like this, just a line, right? And they changed it to this. So they got fancy on you, Leonard. They changed the line. So shout out to Kevin again for catching both of these. It stumped me for a few minutes too, because it was in the morning before I had my coffee, so, that's the excuse, right? Next up's a conversation we had in my Access forum on my website. Jeffrey, one of my Silver members, says he had a thought that he wanted to know whether or not Access automatically freed up memory from forms and subforms and stuff when you close an object. Does that memory get, returned back to the system? And honestly, I didn't know. I suspected that it does a pretty good job of it, but I said I'd have to investigate. So I opened up the TechHelp free template, and it was taking up 48 megs of memory. I opened up the customer form, closed the customer form, pretty much stayed the same. Opened up the customer list form, it's up to 50 megs. Opened up the contact form, it's up to 51 megs, right? Then I closed them all, and I waited a minute to see if Access cleaned that stuff up, and it still stayed at 50 megabytes. So test number one, it didn't look like it was doing a good job of cleaning up after itself. So then I decided to start up my main database, the one that actually runs my business, that I do all my work in. And it starts up at 81 megabytes to begin with. So then I did a bunch of work, I do my customer service emails and stuff, and my accounting tasks and stuff like that. And it ballooned up to 120 megabytes from 80. Okay? And then again, I waited, I shut everything down, except I left the database itself running, and it did not free up that memory that it took. So I can only conclude that Access is not doing a great job of freeing up memory. When you open forms and reports and declare record sets and all that stuff, even if you manually destroy those objects, Access doesn't always get rid of the stuff in memory. So that's why I recommend reboot your Access database at least daily. All right, if it's a database you're working with all day long, when you're done for the day, shut it down. Don't leave it running constantly. If you do have a database that runs constantly, like I've got what I call a server database. It's a front-end Access database connected to my SQL server that does a lot of, maintenance stuff. It processes orders and that kinds of stuff. I have that guy reboot every hour. Sometimes you'll hear it in the background in my videos. You'll hear the Star Trek transporter. That's my hourly chime. At the top of every hour, it just reboots, starts itself over again, cleans its memory. Because I know from the past, I've gone on vacation before, after 3 days of vacation, I'd get server warning messages that it's not running. I'd have to log in remotely and reboot it. So now I have it reboots every hour on the hour, and it keeps itself nice and fresh. And Kevin Yip chimed in and said that Access is not the most resource-intensive app. He said your web browser is probably using more memory. Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, you can see it right there. Google Chrome. A whole bunch more memory than Access is using. But the point is that Access, if you let it run continuously, it's going to not free up the memory that's taking. And it's actually not that good at managing its own memory if it's left running for multiple days in a row. Whereas I know my web browser, I leave open all the time. And it's, the web browser will lock up too sometimes. But the point is, if you let Access run continuously and don't restart it once in a while, you're going to run into problems. So shut it down at the end of the day when you're done using it, restart it. If you've got a server machine or something sitting in the corner running Access continuously, reboot it at least once a day. Sammy, I would tell you to put this on the list, but I don't think there's much they can even do about that. So, Khan in the visitor forum on my website, where anyone can post a question, by the way. You don't have to be a paid student to post in the visitor forum. Basically, in a nutshell, his question says he's got his product set up in his table, but he wants to be able to say that if something's got an expiration date coming up soon, he wants to be able to sell that product first. In other words, keep track of each individual item in stock, not just a collection of products. So if that's the case, you're going to need two separate tables, okay? One table is your product table, and that just says I have 10 apples, I have 15 hard drives, okay, in stock. But your inventory table or your item table or whatever you want to call that will track each individual item, and you're going to have some way of tracking those items, like a serial number or a label or something you stick on it, right? Right? This is hard drive 101. This is hard drive 102, hard drive 103. And if you're selling produce, for example, you can track what the expiration date is on that, and then your system could then be programmed to say, okay, sell the stuff with the expiration dates coming soonest, right? Rotate the stock properly. I covered tracking individual items with barcodes or whatever kind of label you want to put on them in either my Access Developer 27 class, or if you want to get serious, I got a barcoding and inventory seminar. I'll put links to both of these things down below. Anthony, one of my silver members, asks if it's possible to build your own unsubscribe button when sending multiple emails, or do you need a service to do this? I've got several videos where I teach you how to send email from Access. Now, maintaining that mailing list is something that you really can't do with just Access. You've got to get some way of getting that information back from the user. So they're either going to reply unsubscribe, right, to that, which is how you used to do it in the old days, right? To get off a mailing list, reply with unsubscribe. And then the mail server would handle that. They had software for that. Nowadays, the way most people do it is there's an unsubscribe link. So there's a link on the bottom of the email. You click on it, but that link's got to go somewhere, right? Me personally, I have a web page built into my site where it just collects the click, right? And then it saves it in a database. And then the database processes that and removes the email address. Technically, I leave the email address in there and just mark it do not send. That way it doesn't accidentally get sent to again. But that's something that you have to program outside of Access. It's not really something you can do in Access. That's more of a website thing. Now, of course, I do teach web design using ASP. So if you guys are interested in seeing how something like this would work, post a comment down below. And like everything, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If enough of you are interested, I'll put together a lesson on it. Here's an interesting question from Dan, one of my gold members. Dan says he's got two tables that get updated with equals now. So you got the exact time in the table. Okay, ignore this thing. And he'd like to match up the two tables somehow. But here's the rub. Even though both fields populate on the after update event, the table is 2 seconds behind the other. So the two datetime fields never match. So he wants to know if he could store it with just that and not the seconds. Okay? Now, my first suggestion is I would not rely on times to link two records together. If there's any other way you can do it, I'd recommend doing that. Because you could have this situation happen where you've got 11:59:59, and then the next one's on the following day at 1 second after midnight. So that could possibly happen. But if that's what you want to do, you can always use time serial and say equals date plus time serial. Time serial takes the individual components, right, the hour, the minute, the second, and builds a time value. Right, here's a video here. I'll show you the link to it in just a second. But you say, send it the hour of right now, the minute of right now, or whatever your date field is, and then a 0. And so if you send to it 11:59:59, you'll end up getting 11:59 and 0 seconds. Then you could use that to link the two records together. But again, see if you can figure out some better way, like an ID or something, because times are not very reliable. I just checked, and I don't have a time serial video yet, a TechHelp video. I got a date serial video. Date serial works the same way. It's year, month, day. You give it the individual pieces, you make a date value. Time serial works the same way. I know I do cover time serial in detail in my Access Expert Level 28 class, which is where I talk about all the date time functions. That's actually part 2. Part 1 is in Expert 27. I got a whole series where I cover all the different functions in Access, from the date functions, the currency functions, the trigonometry function, all the functions are covered. Next up is a question from one of my moderators, Sammy, and a good friend of mine. And he says that he wants some clarification on referential integrity, because I've mentioned a few times that referential integrity does not work in a split database. But he's tested it in his backend in a split database, and the cascade delete worked just fine. So I should probably clarify, and I think I've mentioned this in a couple of my classes, referential integrity only works inside of one database file. So if you've got a front end and a back end, okay, and you only have one of each, you can put referential integrity, including cascade deletes, in that single backend file. What I meant to say was, it doesn't work across database files. So if you've got your backend split into multiple backends, like you've got your customers in one backend and your orders in another, you can't do referential integrity between two different files. But as long as all the tables are in the same physical ACCDB file, then you can have referential integrity there, and it'll work just fine. Me personally, I generally don't rely on referential integrity. I like to put that coding in my front end. So if, for example, if I delete an order, then I delete all of the child orders in my code in the button that deletes the order. So I like to control all that myself with code. But yeah, you can certainly use it if you want to. And there's my video on referential integrity. And I cover it in a lot more detail in my Access Expert classes. The Expert classes focus a lot on relationships between tables. All right, folks, that's going to do it for Quick Queries number 15. Hope you learned something. Hope this helps somebody. If you got questions, post them down below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can post them on YouTube in the comments section. I check those as often as I can, but honestly, I check my website forums a whole lot more often than I do on YouTube, so post them on my website. If you can, you can go to the visitor forum there and post them there as well. But that's going to be your Tech Help video for today. I hope you learned something. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and post any comments you may have below. I do try to read and answer all of them as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. Click the bell icon and select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Want to learn more? Click the Show More link below the video to find additional resources and links. YouTube does a pretty good job of hiding it. It's right down there. See this part of the description here, right? The name, the video's up here. There's a little Show More down there, right down the bottom. It's kind of hard to find. But once you click on that, you'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. And YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted like they used to do. But if you'd like to get an email every time I post a new video, click on the link to join my mailing list. And you can pick how frequently to get emails from me, either as they happen, daily, weekly, or monthly. Now, if you'd like to become a paid member of my channel and receive all kinds of awesome perks, click on the Join button. You'll see a list of all the different membership levels that are available, each with its own special perks, including my extended cut videos, access to my code vault, lots of VBA source code in there, template downloads, and lots more. I'll talk more about these perks at the end of the video. Even if you don't want to commit to becoming a paid member and you'd like to help support my work, please feel free to click on the tip jar link. Your patronage is greatly appreciated and will help keep these free videos coming I got some puppies to feed. But don't worry, no matter what, these free tech help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more, and they'll always be free. Now, if you really want to learn Access and you haven't tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, and more. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link down below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? The whole thing, free, 4 hours. Go watch it. And okay, a lot of you have told me that you don't have time to sit through a 4-hour course. So I do now have a quicker Microsoft Access for Beginners video that covers all the basics faster in about 30 minutes. And no, I didn't just put the video on fast forward. But I'll put a link to this down below as well. Now, if you like level 1, level 2 is just $1. That's it, $1. And that's another whole 90-minute course. Level 2 is also free for paid members of any level, including supporters. So if you're a member, go watch level 2. It's free. Okay, want to get your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my Tech Help page and send me your question there. Members get priority, of course. While I do try to read and respond to all of the comments posted below in the comments section, I only have time to go through them briefly a couple of times a month, and sometimes I get thousands of them. So send me your question here on the Tech Help page, and you'll have a better chance of getting it answered. And while you're on my website, be sure to stop by my Access forum. We've got lots of lively conversations about Microsoft Access and other topics. I have a fantastic group of moderators who help me answer questions. Shout out to Alex, Kevin, Scott, Adam, John, Dan, Juan, and everybody else who helps out on the site. I appreciate everything you do. I couldn't do it without you. Be sure to follow my blog, find me on Twitter, and of course on YouTube. Yeah, I'm on Facebook too, but I don't like Facebook. Don't get me started. Now, let's talk more about those member perks if you do decide to join as a paid member. There are different levels: Silver, Gold, Platinum, and Diamond. Silver members and up get access to all of my extended cut Tech Help videos, one free beginner class every month, and some other perks. Gold members get all the previous perks, plus access to download the sample databases that I build in my Tech Help videos, plus access to my code vault where I keep tons of different functions that I use, the code that I build in most of the videos. You'll also get higher priority if you do submit any Tech Help questions. Now, answers are never guaranteed, but you do go higher in the list for me to read them. And if I like your question, you got a good chance of it being answered. You'll also get one free expert level class each month after you've finished the beginner series. Platinum members get all the previous perks plus even higher priority for Tech Help questions. You get access to all of my full beginner level courses for every subject. And I cover lots of different subjects like Word, Excel, VBA, ASP, lots of different stuff, not just Access. These are the full-length courses found on my website. You get all the beginner ones. In addition, once you finish the expert classes, you get one free developer class per month. So lots of training. And finally, you can also become a Diamond sponsor. You'll have your name or your company name listed on a sponsors page that will be shown on each video as long as you're a sponsor. You'll get a shout out in the video and a link to your website or product in the text below the video and on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by accesslearningzone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you again soon.